Breath of the Wild has been out for just over a month now, and while it was a long wait, it was so worth it. At time of writing, I'm only about 70% of the way through the main story, but there's a lot to explore, find and do, and it's an amazing game. Unfortunately, it also has a few annoying aspects which, although not game breaking or anything, can cause a few choice words to be yelled at the screen. So, sit back, relax and enjoy as I go through my top 5 loved and hated aspects of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. As always, I'll be alternating through each list, 5th most loved, 5th most hated, 4th most loved, etc. This is purely my opinion and will only be looking at the Nintendo Switch version of the game, so don't yell at me saying I'm wrong because you have a different opinion or because something is different in the Wii U version. But with that, let's get going. When it comes to large open worlds, it can be difficult to know where to go next or in what direction your objective is in. Early on in the game you get told to find a high up place to search for shrines or places of interest, but I love the views. Have you ever gone somewhere high up and just looked? Not tried to find a shrine, not checked out where something is, just looked. Hyrule is a beautiful land and some of the views you can find on top of mountains or towers are absolutely stunning. I put this low on the list because ultimately this is a graphical aspect and there are more important things than graphics in games, but I had to mention it anyway. I apologise profusely for the foul language, but Octobots can absolutely go fuck themselves. Of all the enemies in the game, these piss me off the most. Granted, they're not everywhere, but when you do come across one, oh my god, do they let you know. You'll be quite happy strolling along when all of a sudden you get a rock to the face. You try and leg it, but somehow they still manage to get you. It's surprising how pissing annoying it is when you're trying to do something but can't, because these bastards have perfect aim on a moving target at 30 paces. And they aren't just in water anymore, oh no. You get land ones as well as mountain ones that essentially fire bombs at you. They can all be shot from a distance with an arrow, but doing so is easier said than done. It's okay if you can get close to chop off their sprouting leaves so they pop up, allowing you to twat them round the face, but getting that close will require suffering a mild concussion or two. They haven't appeared anywhere near as much as they used to, which is why these guys are low on the list, but even so, I hate them and they can absolutely go fuck themselves. A mainstay of the Zelda series is collecting hearts as you venture around to replenish your health. In Breath of the Wild, you find food you can eat, but cooking the food is where the fun begins. It's surprising how much time you can spend stood by a pot coming up with all sorts of random creations. Some work well and give extra benefits, while others end up a congealed mess. I quite like how they've censored out the dubious concoction image, but even so, it's a lot of fun putting random things together and seeing what comes out. After a lot of cooking, it's always disappointing seeing the message that I can't hold any more meals, but no doubt it won't be long before I'm at it again. It's a great addition to the game that I've wasted far too much time messing around with. As I mentioned, there's a hell of a lot to do, and a lot of people give you quests, which are pretty much things they're too lazy or weak to do themselves. Selecting the mission you want to focus on puts a location mark on the map to help narrow down where you need to go and then where the quest giver is so you can finish the quest. The problem is that there are several quests where once you've given them what they want, you can then give them more things you've found in order to get more rewards. The problem is that because you've completed the quest, you can't select it anymore to find out where the guy is. It's great the Zora Man will give you a diamond in exchange for 10 luminous stones, but if you've got no idea where in the massive Zora's domain he is, it gets very tedious running around aimlessly looking for him. And while I'm talking about him, does he really need to count out the luminous stones I'm giving him to make sure there are 10 of them every damn time? Trust issues much? Every Zelda game has a list of characters you come across in your travels, and Breath of the Wild is no exception. A lot of characters are brilliant, and while I haven't completed the game yet, I've still met some cool characters in my travels. A few familiar faces have cropped up, but the new ones have been varied and had such different personalities. I've liked every character so far. As a first for the series, there's actually voice acting. Link is still silent, which I'm quite pleased with, but the voices for the other characters work very well. The only one I'm not too sure about is Zelda, as she seems to be quite a strong-willed, feisty person, but her voice is a bit too soft. It would work with a more regal princess, but with the way Zelda speaks and what she gets up to, it doesn't always work. Even so, there's a great bunch of characters in the game, and I look forward to seeing who else I come across. Again, there's a lot to do in Breath of the Wild. I spent so many hours playing the game, and I recently completed my third of the 4 main dungeons, but that's one of the things I don't like about the game. There are only 4 main dungeons. I didn't like that about Majora's Mask, and I don't like it about Breath of the Wild. Dungeons are always well designed, full of brilliant puzzles and an epic boss fight. The dungeons in Breath of the Wild, well, the 3 I've done at least anyway, the Zora Elephant, the Gora Salamander, and the Rito Bird, had their moments of brilliance, but in the grand scheme of things, they aren't anything special, and neither are the boss battles. Each stage is freeing a divine beast, and they are essentially the same. Activate a load of towers, activate the main control panel, beat boss. Each dungeon has a gimmick, like the salamander rotating the entire dungeon 90 degrees, or the bird tilting at different angles, and they do make for some great puzzles, but they're rather short, probably around 20 minutes, and that's on a first playthrough. The bosses are also rather poor. The first half can be done by just shooting them in the face with arrows, and then they'll go into a second stage which may require a different tactic, but once that's out of the way, it's back to arrows to finish them off. All 3 bosses I've fought so far have been very underwhelming. Swords are cool, I love them, and the Master Sword is an iconic weapon not just in the Zelda series, but in gaming in general. Then comes the Wind Waker, where you can pick up the weapons of your enemies and beat them to death with them. I've been hoping this would make a return since then, and finally it has, but it's been hugely expanded on. You find weapons, bows and shields all over the place, with each one having different power ratings, benefits and durability. Weapon degradation is usually something that gets moaned about in Breath of the Wild, but it's not too bad. Well, it doesn't bother me anyway. I've expanded my inventory a fair bit, but I'm still having to leave a lot of weapons and shields behind, so it's not like weapons breaking is a problem that leaves me unable to fight back. Everything decent I have to leave behind, I mark on the map so I can go back for it if I need to. Even so, I still love being able to defeat an enemy, pick up their weapon, and then ruin all of his buddies with it. Having different types of weapons and the abilities you use during combat make for some very intense battles. I have my preferences on which type of weapon I like to use, but I love being able to have some variation on what I'm using to twat my enemies. As is always the case when there's an evil dude you have to annihilate, you've got to take care of his minions as well, and in Breath of the Wild there are plenty of them. It's great walking up to unsuspecting baddies and twatting them round the face, but when you get twatted, Link spends ages rolling around before getting back up. I know it's what would happen if you got knocked onto a slope, but in the heat of battle it gets really frustrating when all you can do is watch him ragdoll along the ground. In its worst defense, there was a place that was a sort of bowl shape, and Link kept rolling down into the middle, which is where the enemies were, so he got hit again, but it happened over and over again, and there was sod all I could do to stop it until he happened to be able to stand up and I could fight back. I ended up having to take a bomb to the face, but it was worth it to show those cocking enemies who's boss. The rolling mechanic is an absolute pain in the ass and I loathe it. There's a lot of things I love about the Zelda series in general, but I usually say the main things that attract me to the games are exploration and puzzles. I've mentioned my disappointment that there are only 4 main dungeons, but there's another place you can get some genius puzzles, the shrines. Some end up being tests of strength, which is just a fight, but the puzzle ones are the best. There are 120 shrines in total, and it's the only optional part of the game I'm planning on doing all of. Each one is so well designed and always comes with a sense of self-satisfaction when you manage to figure out the puzzle and get the spirit orb, which can be used to increase your hearts or stamina. Getting to the shrines can be an absolute pain in the ass, and I've had to look up how to get through a few of them because as much as I love exploration, I hate randomly roaming around hoping to stumble across the solution. Once I'm in the shrine though, I always have a great time, and they're my favourite aspect of Breath of the Wild. Even before the game was released, it was said that the game was a case of, if you can see it, you can go there, and I've said a few times that one of the things I love about the games is exploration. Running along, seeing something shiny and having a look at what it's all about always make for the fun times, but it's so infuriating when the weather stops you from doing that. Normally Link has wall climbing skills that could rival Spider-Man's, so climbing up cliffs is a piece of cake, but as soon as it starts to rain, you're in for one frustrating time. Link can't climb up them as easily as they become slippery, which makes sense, I get it, but when you want to get somewhere but can't because of the pissing rain, it gets so annoying. Whereas most things on the hated list either aren't major annoyances or don't happen that often, rain seems to happen so regularly I'm starting to think the game is based in the UK. I've even had cases where I've been in a trench in the middle of nowhere and the only way out is to climb, but I couldn't because of the sodding rain. Granted, I could have warped out, but the nearest warp place was miles away and I wasn't finished exploring the area. Luckily, I've got a fair bit of stamina now and recently acquired Rivali's Gale, so it's not as much of an issue as it used to be, but it still is an issue that never fails to annoy. So that's what I love and hate about Breath of the Wild. As always, let me know what you thought, as well as what you love and hate about the game. But for now, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.